Normally I don't write stuff like this, but I had to share this feeling of satisfaction and the absurdity of what happened with someone. This place seems like the right spot for it. The story is a bit long, but if you stick with it, you'll see that moment of, oh yeah, relief and that karma, sometimes served cold. But in my case, it was a bit lukewarm. I didn't wait that long. About 2 years ago, I rented an apartment in a central location, close to work, in a decent building. The apartment was small, but it had a balcony, and that was really important to me. Drinking my morning coffee out there, reading a book in the evenings, getting some fresh air now and then, just my little pleasures. For the first few weeks, everything was great. The residents seemed quiet, keeping to themselves. Until I meet my upstairs neighbor. The names aren't real, of course. I don't want to dox anyone. For the purpose of this story, let's call me Mike, my upstairs neighbor Susan, and our building manager Mr. Henderson. Susan's presence was first known to me by the layer of dust that appeared on my balcony floor, and then with the strange stains on my window panes. At first, I didn't mind. I thought it's city life. Dust happens, maybe bird poop or something. But it kept getting worse. Every morning, I'd see a more distinct layer of dust and grime on the balcony floor, and new, streaky stains on my windows. It was like Susan was pouring things down from above. Then I caught the source of the problem. One Saturday morning, I was just about to open my balcony door and step outside, when suddenly a huge cloud of dust and a mixture of various threads, lint, and hairballs came floating down. I instinctively pulled myself back inside. It dawned on me. My upstairs neighbor was shaking out a rug, and she was doing it directly downwards, onto my balcony. This wasn't a one-off. In the following weeks, these rug-shaking sessions became a regular occurrence, usually on weekends, right when I was trying to enjoy my balcony or had hung out laundry. It was like she timed it specifically to annoy me. And she didn't just stop at shaking rugs. Sometimes weird water droplets would come down, sometimes cigarette butts. Smoking indoors was supposedly forbidden. Sometimes small pieces of paper or garbage crumbs I couldn't figure out. One time, she literally dumped pot soil. My life was becoming a misery. I couldn't use my balcony. If I hung out laundry, it would get dirty. If I left my windows open, dust would blow in. I was constantly cleaning my windows and sweeping my balcony. It felt like I had been assigned the job of cleaning up Susan's apartment's mess. My first step was diplomacy. I knocked on her door. I introduced myself politely, told her I was the downstairs neighbor, and explained the situation. It must be happening by accident, but when you shake rugs or dump things, my balcony and windows get dirty, and it's very bothersome. Could you perhaps be a little more careful? I said. Susan just stared at me blankly. She was a woman in her 50s, slightly overweight, with a perpetually dissatisfied expression on her face. Where else am I supposed to shake the rug then? Inside the building? She replied. Something like that. Well, maybe you could just shake it inside, or shake it inwards towards your balcony? I offered absurd suggestions out of desperation. Clearly, Susan didn't want to understand. Okay, we'll see about it, she said, closing the door in my face. What she meant by we'll see about it was making the situation worse, as if she was doing it deliberately. After that day, the amount and variety of filth coming onto my balcony increased. It wasn't just dust anymore, but food crumbs, tissues, and one time, even a used cotton swab. This was a clear challenge from Susan. I talked to the building manager, Mr. Henderson. I explained the situation, even showed him pictures. Mr. Henderson was an older man, he said. I'll talk to her, that's not right. And he did talk to Susan. The result? Nothing changed. Susan didn't care. It was like she had no contact with anyone in the building, living in her own world, and bothering others wasn't a problem for her. My patience was wearing thin. Not being able to use my balcony, constantly cleaning, being subjected to such disrespect was eating away at me. A fire of revenge began to burn inside me. But how? Legal avenues would take a long time and weren't guaranteed. If I knocked on her door and yelled, things would get ugly, and my peace in the building, what little was left, would be gone. It had to be something that would bother her, but wouldn't go too far legally, and most importantly, would look like a consequence of her own actions. A karma strike. I thought for days. What could I do? What could I do that would sting her, metaphorically, of course? Should I throw something onto her balcony? No, that would be clearly traceable back to me, Mike. Something to embarrass her? Something to force her to clean? I had a couple of failed ideas. For instance, I threw birdseed onto her balcony, hoping birds would make a mess. They ate it all in 2 days. Susan swept the balcony, and the dirt still came down to me. I thought about spraying something slippery on her balcony railing from the outside, but I got scared she might fall and hurt herself, so I gave up on that. Then a brilliant idea came to me, to use her own filth against her. The dust, lint, dirt, hair, that she had been throwing onto my balcony for months. I had been collecting it as I swept. I hadn't been able to bring myself to throw it away. Almost instinctively, it had accumulated in a small bag. It was a disgusting mix, but it was perfect material for revenge. My plan was simple but wicked. When Susan was out somewhere, shopping, visiting someone, away from home, I would somehow access her balcony. How? Not from my balcony, that was too dangerous. Not from inside the building either, the risk of being seen was too high. Somehow from the outside. My apartment was 1 floor above the ground floor, and Susan was 1 floor above me. On the outside face of the building, where my balcony was, there was a small ledge between the ground floor and mine. Below my balcony was empty space. Below Susan's balcony was my balcony. So, my balcony was like a waste disposal area for her. One day, I noticed Susan leaving her apartment early in the morning. She usually left early on Thursday mornings. I think she went to the market. This was my chance. I quickly prepared what I needed: that disgusting bag of filth, some old sticky jam or molasses. I found some expired molasses in the kitchen. It even smelled bad. Perfect. A bit of cheap vegetable oil and a large stiff piece of cardboard or a thin piece of wood. My goal was this: mix that filth mixture with the molasses and oil to create a disgusting sticky paste, and spread this paste on Susan's balcony floor, especially near the edge of the window and close to the balcony door threshold. The cardboard or wood piece would be the tool to fling this mixture upwards, onto her balcony. It was risky, but it was worth it. After making sure Susan had left the house, I discreetly followed her out of the building entrance. I quickly returned to my apartment. I went out onto the balcony. I opened that disgusting bag of filth. The smell. Oh God. Months of grime, dust, hair, who knows what else. I added the molasses and oil. I was wearing gloves, but it still made my stomach turn. I mixed the repulsive concoction with the piece of wood until it was a paste. It was sticky, smelly, dark brown stuff. Just as I wanted. Now came the hardest part. Throwing this mixture upwards. I went to the edge of my balcony. The floor of Susan's upper balcony was directly above my head. I put a good amount of the paste onto the piece of wood. I took a deep breath. I looked around, checking if anyone was there. It was early morning. The area was quiet. With a quick, determined motion, I flicked the piece of wood upwards. Some of the mixture slid off the wood and reached its target, splattering and sticking to Susan's balcony floor, in front of her window. Some splashed back, a little onto my balcony too. But oh well, the main target was hit. I quickly brought the wood back down, put more paste on it, and flung it up a second, third, eighth time. All that disgusting mixture was upstairs. I had focused especially on the area near her balcony door and under her window. With the help of the sun, that sticky, oily mixture would dry and become a true nightmare. After I finished the job, I quickly cleaned my balcony and picked up anything that had fallen below. I also secretly threw away the materials I used. My heart was pounding. I was scared. What if I got caught? But at the same time, I felt an indescribable excitement and anticipation inside me. Now, it was time to wait. Susan returned home in the afternoon. A few hours later, there was movement on her balcony. I was peeking through the gap in my curtains. Susan came out onto the balcony, looked around, and then spotted the disgusting paste. At first, she didn't seem to understand what it was. She bent down and touched it with her finger. Then her face suddenly twisted into an expression of shock and disgust. She bent closer to look, and I think she recognized the contents: hair, lint, etc. Her face turned pale. She stepped back. The next scenes were a total visual feast, for me, of course. Susan grabbed something like a mop or a brush and tried to clean it. But the sticky, oily, dusty mixture was badly stuck to the floor. She tried sweeping, it didn't work. She brushed it. It spread but didn't come off. She poured water, it spread even more, and a disgusting smell emanated. I could see her panicking. The woman who was normally so indifferent was now a victim of her own mess, enhanced by my little touches. She struggled for about half an hour, but it was useless. That sticky, foul mixture was glued to the concrete floor, already starting to dry in the sun. The worst part was the areas near her balcony door and window were even worse. She went inside and came out again, this time with different cleaning supplies, I assume. Probably tried something more chemical, but that sticky filth wasn't coming off. Every move she made seemed to spread the mess even more. At some point, I saw her give up. With an expression of complete defeat on her face, she went inside. She didn't even close the balcony door completely, leaving it ajar, probably to air it out. The smell was likely spreading. The disgusting stain on the balcony became even more prominent under the sun. For the next few days, Susan didn't come out onto her balcony at all. That huge, disgusting, sticky stain remained there, like a monument to shame. I think she realized that the more she tried, the worse it got. Or maybe she was bothered by the smell. Or she simply didn't know what to do. A few days later, I guess she couldn't stand it anymore or asked for help, because I saw her call a cleaning company. 2 people came, with special machines, chemicals, and spent hours trying to clean her balcony. I think they even used a pressure washer. That filth didn't come off easily. I could see how much they were struggling even from a distance. And it must have cost Susan a fortune. Hours of professional cleaning don't come cheap. And that's when it happened. While watching them spend hours trying to clean that massive, disgusting stain, the result of Susan's own filth, combined by me, all the helplessness, anger, and exhaustion that had built up inside me just vanished. It was replaced by an indescribable feeling of satisfaction. Every brush stroke, every chemical spray, was a repayment for the months of misery I had endured. Finally, Susan's balcony was clean, spotless. And guess what? Since that day, my upstairs neighbor has not thrown down a single piece of trash, not a single speck of dust onto my balcony again. Where she shakes her rugs, where she throws her trash, I don't know, but they are definitely not coming onto my balcony. Perhaps taking revenge wasn't the right thing to do. Perhaps I lowered myself to Susan's level. But after months of disrespect, annoyance, and a situation that even the building manager, Mr. Henderson, couldn't resolve, it felt like I had no other choice. And I have to admit, the feeling of oh yeah, that I felt while watching the cleaning company on her balcony that day was priceless. It was as if the universe took her careless, polluting behavior and, with a little help from me, returned it to her. It felt exactly like the consequence of karma, drowning in her own filth, literally. Now I can sit on my balcony in peace. I can hang out my laundry with confidence. My windows stay clean. And whenever I go out onto the balcony, I look up at that spotless floor above and a sly smile crosses my face. Sometimes, karma just needs a little push. That's my story. It's long, but I wanted to tell it. Do you have similar neighbor stories that drove you crazy and resulted in that oh yeah kind of solution? Feel free to share in the comments. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is making the other person get hit by their own weapon, especially if that weapon is full of filth. Thanks for reading. Edit. I've read the comments. Some of you said what I did was excessive. You might be right. Normally I'm not this kind of person, but months of disrespect and helplessness can push a person to their limits. My goal wasn't to physically harm her, just to make Susan see with her own eyes the problem she created and how disgusting and hard it was to deal with. I think I achieved my goal, and it led to a permanent solution. And yes, that oh yeah feeling is still there. Edit 2. For those wondering, I haven't spoken to Susan since that day. If I see her on the street, I don't greet her, and she doesn't greet me. But we don't have problems anymore. It's like a silent agreement. She doesn't encroach on my space, and I don't interact with her. A win-win situation, as long as my windows stay clean. In conclusion, yes, it was a bit of a dark and risky path, but it worked. And sometimes the things that work aren't the most civilized. But at least now I have peace.